Hi Ben, thanks for the footage. First of all, before I go on with the online lesson, welcome to the Stack and Tilt community on behalf of all the instructors. It's a great group of people to be involved with. The amount of learning that you're about to experience knows no bounds really. It's just going to go on and on. Great group of people to be involved with. You'll enjoy the process, and I'm sure that you'll have many questions that you post on the Facebook forums or you email us privately. We can answer to the best of our abilities. In regards to your swing, a lot of really good pieces going on here. What I'd like to do first of all is give you a little bit of an overview before suggesting the changes that I would make. I think the first thing I noticed, I mean, really powerful swing. What I would say is it's nice and tidy in parts up until P3. Then it starts to get way above plane, so we need to control those arms a little bit. You can see that from the front on view as well. Arms tend to really, I mean, there's a really good looking position. Arms tend to then lift quite substantially. Tremendous amount of lag. I mean, I know I'd love to see your TrackMan numbers, because you must hit a mile with leverage like that. Tremendous amount of lag at that point. Accumulator 2 loading massively, so this angle here increasing, giving us a lot of power. A lot of potential power anyway, just got to learn to apply it properly to the back of the golf ball. See, they're coming into it, loads of lag. Release a little bit excessive, right heel popping up in the air a little bit too much. Chasing after it in the finish, so giving the impression that you've not sort of slid the hips for long enough, even though when we look at it here there's plenty of side tilt to the right coming into the golf ball. So a few things there that could maybe be confusing to you at this stage. So if I go through the changes that I'm going to suggest to what is, in the grand scheme of things, quite an impressive looking swing, as I say, just needs tidying up and controlling a little bit more. So in regards to the lines that I've put on there and the notes that I've made for you on the bottom right of the screen, that's the sort of the basis of the changes that I'd suggest. I mean, first of all, if we work through these, I've put the ball up in the stance. 0 point being the left shoulder. Anything back of that point is going to produce a downward and outward hit. Anything forward of that point is potentially going to produce an upward and inward hit. Now, what I would say to you there is that you've got the ball back in the stance excessively. I mean, your ball position here is well to the right of centre. That's going to produce too much of a descending blow, too much of an outward hit. And for my money, I mean, most of the things you do in the downswing are a result of this setup position. So if you can move that ball up in the stance slightly, put it a little bit more towards the left shoulder, I would be positioning the ball as a benchmark, 2 balls in from the left shoulder. That's going to give you some descent, but not excessive. I like the hand position, I think that's good. I think the stance could maybe be narrowed a fraction. You look to me like you're hitting a 6 or a 7-9 there. I would possibly have that stance just a couple of inches narrower than which you've got it at the moment. So maybe a touch narrower in the stance. That's not essential, but certainly moving that ball up more towards that red line, which is very similar to what you would see here with Charlie Wee. Charlie Wee's hitting an 8-iron in this footage, and you can see there we put the 0 point in on the left shoulder. His ball is maybe 3 balls back in that instance, but it's certainly not back here where you've got yours at present. That's producing too much of a descending blow, too much of an outward hit, and as a result is making it too difficult for you to achieve that little push draw that is desirable. So move the ball up in the stance initially. The next thing we need to do is control the length at which the arm swings. So let's get rid of some of these lines here for us a sec. As we go back and stop you there, I've put a little blue line on where roughly the butt of the club is at that point now. The body now has turned fully. We've extended in the thoracic, which is good. We've not really extended in the pelvis quite as much as I'd like to see, which we'll come to when we get the down the line footage on. The reason I mention this is when you're viewing swings from face on, you'd like to see a little bit more side bend in the hips. With yourself, the hips are looking a little bit level. Now in your instance, you're very flexible by the looks of things, big strong guy, so you're able to extend the thoracic more than maybe some of the pupils that you're going to get coming to you. With a pupil who is less flexible, you would find here, because we've not side bended and extended in the pelvis enough, the player would consequently struggle to complete his shoulder turn. The extension of the thoracic is one thing, so the upper spine, and extension has to be everything. You're extending the ankle, the knee, the hips, the upper spine and the neck. The whole unit has to extend or straighten up during the backswing. So what happens with yourself now, the hips stay quite level and then the arms continue to swing, and you can see there that the body hasn't really done a great deal from the blue line to the red line. That is purely the arms lifting off the rib cage. When we look at that from down the line, again, hands working in nicely, P1 to P2. Arms and hands still in at P3. And watch how the hands and the arms climb above that plane line now as you approach the top. Now in regards to controlling this, the other note I've made there is free up and extend the pelvis. It's got to start from the floor up. If we look at that yellow line across your right knee, there's not sufficient straightening of the right leg during the backswing. As we see here with Mike, the right leg's going to start to straighten immediately. The right leg straightening allows the right hip to work up and back as the left knee flexes forward. So the right knee straightening, the left knee flexing forward allows those hips to turn on a tilted angle. With yourself, there's a tendency to have the hips just a touch flatter at P4 than you had them at P3. So I'd like to see this right leg straighten more. Straightening the right leg more would work the right hip up, and as a result would allow us to have more extension in the pelvis and more side bend in the hips when viewed from face on. That would free up the movement of the left arm and would allow us to extend more and get the butt of the club to travel further, maybe onto the yellow lines there, without us lifting the arms off the rib cage. Now as the arms lift off the rib cage, they're now going to come down above plane, and really the whole thing now is an attempt to keep this club on the inside. And you can see how much the pelvis works in towards the ball. The right heel popping up in the air is a sign that the player is using the extension too early to keep the club from coming above plane. So it's almost like arms lift off the rib cage, get above plane, the transition is above plane, and then the player extends. So what you're going to do now is you're going to pull the hips in, you're going to hang on to accumulator 1, which I'll show you from face on shortly, in an attempt to get this club back into a position to hit a draw from. When we look at it from face on, you certainly sense it. The arms have come off the rib cage, which is what we just discussed. Now what I'd like to pay attention to now is how, as you start down, the head goes back and to the right, or back and away from your target. As you do that, the angle formed between the right forearm and bicep, so accumulator 1, isn't being released. So if you're teaching someone and you're seeing the head move back and to the right, there's a good chance that accumulator 1 isn't being released steadily from the top of the backswing. Now in your instance, if you were to release accumulator 1 steadily from this above plane position where the arms have lifted off the rib cage, the club would be so far out in front here at P6 that all you would do is hit pulls and pull face. So you're hanging on to accumulator 1 and dropping that right shoulder back to help you keep the club inside. You can see what happens with Charlie Weir. The butt of the club with the right arm is extending and moving away from the right shoulder at a steady rate. As a result, the upper axis does not translate back. And you can see here an interesting one for you. His left knee is out in front of his left ankle. Yours isn't. And yet you appear to have the same amount of side bend to the right coming into the golf ball as Charlie has. The difference is Charlie's made it by moving the hips forward and you've made it by dropping the upper axis back. So there's a translation away from the target, down and to the right with the head. Whenever that happens, the right shoulder now, instead of turning and working downwards, is now purely working downwards. So it's not turning as it's working downwards. And whenever that happens, you're going to see a high rate of closure on the player's golf club. You look at Mike, how much more on top of the rib cage the arms are. Hands in, arms in. Hands in, arms in. Mike's arms now are going to be controlled to the top. Your arms swing excessively and get above plane. Having said that, if you free up the pelvis and you extend the right knee, the freedom of the left arm will improve and you will feel less of a need to swing the arms excessively to the top of the backswing. Once we're in a better position at the top, so once we're looking a little bit more like Mike at the top, arms on the rib cage, left arm a little bit more in sympathy with the shoulder plane, there will be far less of a need to hang on to the right arm, to hang on to accumulator 1, to drop the upper axis back and to extend too early to keep this club on the inside. We'll be in a much better position to steadily release accumulator 1, therefore having a much more stable axis and a much steadier rate of closure coming through impact. Keeping everything inside by default and being able to extend at the appropriate time, which is through impact rather than prior to impact. You can see that by the early extension you get the arms, or the excessive extension, the arms start to come off the rib cage, high rate of closure on the golf club. In regards to the shot pattern that you're experiencing, toe strikes, pull, closed club face. Looking at this footage, I mean, it looks to me like you're going to hit pulls if you don't extend early and hold on to accumulator 1. So that's going to give you a sort of a pull. The toe strike comes because the right shoulder's stopping and the overtaking rate of the club through impact is too great. So as I said before, to frame that, areas you need to work on, get rid of the lines. First change relates to set up from face on, move the ball up in the stance, nearer to the badge on the shirt, if you will, 2 balls in, where the club crest would normally be. on such a garment. So 2 balls in from the left shoulder, move the ball up in the stance. A little bit more like we see on this footage of Charlie Wayne. Remember, he's sitting a sort of slightly more lofted, I would imagine, iron than yourself, and he's certainly got the ball less back in the stance. Second piece we need to work on is to control the arm swing during the backswing, as per what we see here with Mike. You may be feeling like you're going to make a 3/4 swing. Short term would help with that, and also place a glove under the right arm where it rests on the rib cage at setup, and just keep it under throughout the time and space of the backswing. You can see from here, looking pretty good. As those arms get out of control, that glove's going to drop out behind you. So controlling the length of the arm swing, keeping the arms on the rib cage. Free up and extend the pelvis. Get this right knee straightening earlier. So good thought for you in the backswing, once you've set yourself up with the ball forward, would be to think right knee straight or right leg straight, 3/4 back. Right leg straight, 3/4 back. And then from there, the feeling that as you start down, the weight's going to move forward and the butt of the golf club is going to work down at the same rate that the weight is moving forward. So you're going to put the hip slide in and you're going to feel like the right arm is straightening at the same rate, so we're not hanging on to accumulator 1 quite as much. Now, personally, I think that as the other pieces improve, as you put the ball up in the stance, as you control the length of the arms on the way back, and as you free up and extend the right knee and pelvis, remember it's the right knee straightening that's going to free up the pelvis and the hips, I feel that this right arm and this accumulator 1 is going to start to release at a much steadier rate. One last key thought for the downswing: no release. I would say you're going to experience over the next few months as you start to work with the network instructors, Andy, Mike, and all the rest of us guys on Facebook, one of the things you're going to realise is that there is no need to release the golf club. Certainly I tell all my students, usually the first lesson comprises of me telling everybody, get the arms in, no release, because most people have got the arms, in my mind anyway, too upright and are trying to release the club on the way through. Move the ball up in the stance, control the arm swing, free up and extend the pelvis by straightening the right knee, and let's see how the release of accumulator 1 starts to improve. As I said, there's a lot of really impressive pieces going on in there in that swing, Ben. We're certainly not at panic stations. I would imagine you're the envy of a lot of golfers at your golf club. Great looking swing. Yes, there's a few pieces in there that you can improve and you will improve. And I hope that this video helps in some small way. If there's any more questions you have, feel free to drop me a line. And if you do get some footage over the coming weeks and you want me to have a little look at it and assess the situation, as I said, you've got my private email there. Feel free to use it. Don't stand on ceremony. Good luck from this side of the pond. Hope you have a great winter. I look forward to seeing how you progress in the coming months.